Okay, the thing that I loved most actually is they are very blunt. Things that you can say there, if you said here, you would not be happy. I mean, they just didn't. If they saw a big, like a larger person, they'd just be like, "Look at that fat guy," and it wasn't as a joke. It was just like, "Hey, he's fat." And they didn't see it as offensive, and I loved it because I'm not the most subtle person. If I'm thinking something, I'm going to say it, and it's gotten me in trouble before here. But there, I could do the same thing. I could say what I wanted to, and they're just like, "Yeah, you're right." It was great that I could just talk so freely over there, and they did not mind. And then they would get like slightly offended by the littlest thing that you're super shocked by, but I mean, just love the people. Some of the toughest people I've ever met. I mean, in some aspects, especially the older generation, they like 95 years old, 95 years old, and they would walk across town to get groceries and walk all the way back. I mean, like, you're 90, man. Most people in America are sitting on their beds, aching or talking about how their knees hurt, but you're 90 over there, and they're just like, well, I need a loaf of bread, or like I need this, and it's across town. I'll go get it. Cool. They'd walk 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back, and like not complain a little bit. They were strong people, I guess, in that aspect. If they needed it, they would do it. They would. I could see some resolve there when they needed to do it, and they would do what it took to survive, and they loved their family. I could always see that. I think that was the biggest thing that I ever saw, because their families would basically stay in one house. I mean, they always had their kids over. They'd always talk about the families, everyone I ever met, even strangers on the street. I'd ask them how they're doing, and I was like, well, what did you do today? And they're like, well, it's not my kid. You want to hear about it? But they would talk 15 minutes about their little kid they've never met before. But they just loved their families, and what they did over there was they'd have a house, they'd have their kids, and the kids would start moving out, and then the youngest kid would kind of take care of the parents. And then once the parents were deceased, then they would get the house. That's how that worked. They'd live there. That was now theirs. So I mean, the same houses would stay in the family for generations. Just super strong-willed people that loved their families, and you could see that. You could see how much they cared about it. And it was, I mean, I don't know how to explain it, because it was evident in their lives, and they weren't afraid to tell you if you couldn't notice it. And it's not something we see over here. And I mean, kind of once you move out, you're almost on your own. But family is family forever. No matter what happens, they're family. They don't like wearing shoes, so they don't actually have carpet over there. It's like, because it was communist, it's all concrete or tile, and they have a couple rugs here and there, but most of it's carpet or tile. So when you walk in, you want to take your shoes off, because the streets are really dirty. And when I say dirty, I mean like hair from stray pets of some sort, of some animal, or just dirt from the mountain that was right next to it. So you'd take your shoes off right before you went in, and then they would have these just cabinets full, this big just cabinet full of slippers of every size. I was shocked at how many, like, they'd open this, they're like, well, what size are you? And I was like, oh, like, I'm kind of this, and they're like, oh, you look like you have big feet. They'd open this thing up, and they would have to like pull these things out because they were so tightly shoved in there. They'd have so much, and they'd give you these because they don't want your feet to get cold, because if your feet got cold, then you would get sick, is what they thought. So, and it also I think it kept the house cleaner, because they were those shoes were in the house all the time. They never wore them outside. So I think it was less innkeeping inside, but their houses were always immaculate. Always. I never saw a dirty house inside. So I think that was another way they kept it clean. So you didn't want to make a mess. And I mean, there wasn't anything special that you had to do to be in a home, but if they offered you in, then you always took your shoes off, unless they said no. And even if they said no, you kind of want to make an argument about it. Like, if they say no, you're not just like, okay, that's cool. Like, you want to be like, you sure? Because I can take them off. And a lot of times I would just like, they'd say no, and I'd be like, well, I'd like pop my shoe off. I'm like, well, it's already off. Like, I don't know, sorry. Just because I felt bad, I didn't want to make their house dirty. And then they'd be like, you shouldn't take them off. And I was like, well, I already did. And they're like, all right.